Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are, and welcome. This is our 25th teaching in this marathon series on the Mahayana Uttara Tantra Shastra. So let's start in the very, very, very best way with our bodhicitta wishes and our heart full of loving care for everybody and a really sincere intention that what we learn today, well, first of all, that we will learn something today, and then secondly, that whatever we do learn today will be put to good use for everybody's benefit, and in particular, our own. We take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma, and in the community of most noble minds, from this moment on until we reach the very heart of enlightenment. Through the practice of generosity and all 6 transcendent virtues, may we reach total awakening and every enlightened quality to be able to truly help sentient beings so lost in samsara. May each and every one of those beings be well. May they live long and be healthy. May they be well provided for, have good friends, find respect, live in places of peace, places of plenty, and most of all, may they practice Dharma. May they each create the causes for these good circumstances to be their wealth in future lives. May they be free from suffering and from creating causes of future suffering. May they discover the natural and sacred well-being totally beyond suffering and attain the great equanimity that's free of closeness or distance from anyone. Deyata shame shamavati shamita shatru Om kurimam kurimarjite karota kiyorite jovati Oloyane beshudane male malapa naye kukure kakagrase Grasana omuki paramuki hamuki shamedavanye Sawa graha bandhanane nigrihitva Sawa bara pravadina Vimukta marapasha sabidva buddha mudra Anudgatita sava mare butsarita parishuddhi Biga shantu sava marakama. Glorious Guru, source of all blessing, ever present above our heads on lotus and moon seat, through your immense kindness, ever sustain us, that the accomplishments of body, speech and mind flow from you, and we are one. So, a brief reminder of where we are amongst all the Shastras. Then we are studying one of the most important Mahayana Shastras about the true nature of our mind, both as a potential, our Buddha nature, and as enlightenment itself, and the manifestations of Buddha, Dharma, Sangha to benefit all beings. We are studying this text and seeing that the main body of the text is in 7 key parts, which are called the 7 Vajra points, 7 Vajra chapters. These break down into 2 sections. The first 3, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, as a result to be attained, and the last 4, enlightenment, Buddha nature, enlightenment, enlightened qualities, enlightened activity are seen as the cause of that result. It's a special way of thinking. So within that, we're in the second main section. We have completed the Buddha nature chapter. We're in the enlightenment chapter. That enlightenment is presented through 8 points. And we're in the third point, which we can say is either enlightenment as a fruition, so we're regarding it as the fruition of our path, or enlightenment's fruition, in which case the word enlightenment has a different definition. And very often in the scriptures, we find that from first level bodhisattva, we talk about enlightenment. First level bodhisattvas are already enlightened beings. And sometimes also arhats are referred to as enlightened beings because of qualities they've achieved. So depending on the different definitions of enlightenment, then if we see first level bodhisattva, and second, and of course second, third, all the rest, through the 10 levels, then we can see something. Their enlightenment is enlightenment, but it's not complete enlightenment. It's still maturing, it's still expanding, it's still becoming more and more vast, more and more subtle and profound. So we can look at it that way as well in this chapter. In general, we've seen at the beginning what enlightenment is purity. And we've seen what causes it in the second point. It's mainly the primordial wisdom that we develop on the cushion and in between profound meditation sessions. In this third point, when we look at it as a fruition, then we're looking at what is it that develops and matures 100%. It's two main areas. It's the purity of our mind and the wisdom that brings about. We have two things, but they're really the same. It's like, one classical example used a lot in Zen is dust on a mirror. The more you take away the dust, the better the mirror functions to reflect you, to see your reflection. So the more we purify our mind, taking away these three things that are spoiling it, our mind poisons, our deluded duality, and our historical blockages to meditation, the more we take them away, the wiser we get. So, although we look at the purity, because there we're looking at what we need to take away as one thing, and then we look at the wisdom, the clarity of mind that emerges, we look at that as another thing. They're really inseparable. So that's what we're looking at in this chapter, and we've looked at it briefly, and then we started, I think, looking at it. No, we looked at it briefly, and now today we need to look at it in more detail. We had these three examples when we looked at it briefly. We had the example of the lotus, the lake, the pure waters of the lake, the moon emerging from an eclipse, and the brilliance of the sun. Is that right? That's where we got to last time. Yeah. I don't think I'm in a different time-space reality from you. I think that's where we got to. And so now we're looking at a more detailed explanation. Verse 177, page 194. Purity as an absence of incidental defilements, desire, and so on, is like the waters of the lake, and so forth. The lake, the moon, the sun. In brief, it is described as being the fruition of non-conceptual dharma, jhana. So here we're looking at the fruition of non-conceptual jhana. What non-conceptual jhana. If there's non-conceptual jhana, and we're going to see later there's conceptual jhana, then we need to understand that jhana is always non-conceptual in itself. So we have the term, which is a translation. It's what it says in the Tibetan. So much of these texts is like shorthand. Until it's unpacked, the words themselves do not make complete sense. It's meant to be like that. Sometimes it's intentionally challenging or misleading. And it was always intended, a text that was written by these great masters, to be explained by a teacher who has the lineage transmission. That's why sometimes it's deliberately doesn't make sense all by itself, or it can even sometimes, looks like it makes another sense. And you see this in translations. You see this even with our modern people who are translating from the Tibetan. There are those who are doing it without a lama's word by word, idea by idea transmission. But also you see it in academic circles. You see linguists who translate, for instance, I better not mention any names, but there are Japanese, Chinese translations of this text, which are literal translations. And when you get the lineage explanation, you realize that if you just look at the words, it looks like that. But when you get the explanation, it's not that. So this is intentional. It's to keep us within an authentic lineage that passes on the inner meaning. So there is jhana in itself is never conceptual. It's clarity of mind. It just is clear in the moment. It doesn't need to think or have ideas. No way. But we have that clarity of mind in two areas. Yeah, and I need to come back to the actual non-conceptual meaning. But anyway, one is on the cushion. When it says, in practice, on the cushion, in session, jhana, there, as an absolutely indispensable basis, we need shamatha. Your mind needs quiet. Nothing happening. Just peace. Quiet, quiet, quiet. Through shamatha practice. And then within that quiet, as time goes by, when that quiet becomes very profound, then we reach a state without concepts. Now, the word concept here doesn't just mean thinking, words in the head, which is, I think, what it means to most people. It means without, it's difficult, without chitta in Sanskrit. It's like minding, without your mind being busy. Any sort of mind, feelings, thinking, mental activity, that needs to shut up. So we have jhana, total clarity, when the mind is totally shut up, and that's where we discover our Buddha nature, first of all. That's our journey. When you're still on the cushion, you receive the lineage instructions for meditation, and bit by bit, you are so quiet and your thoughts quieten down more and more. We'll come back to that, this more and more. But in the end, you go beyond mind activity. So that's non-conceptual jhana. Jhana when there's no concept present, no mental activity present. Then off the cushion, we're in a world where you can't avoid mental activity. There's people, things, stuff happening. Imagine you're going into the Samiling lunch queue without any kind of mental activity. Could you tell the rice from the broccoli? Or could you tell a queue from a non-queue and taking your place? Would you know that you need to pick up a spoon as well as a fork for the pudding? Once we're off the cushion and away from that total quiet, then, it's a good term in English, thought-provoking. Life is thought-provoking. So we need to develop the same clarity of mind and the same transcendence as we find on the cushion. The clarity itself is non-conceptual, but that non-conceptual clarity is happening while the noise of life is there. Not so easy to explain, better to do it, then it makes sense. So anyway, that's what we're talking about in this section, right? So let's go back to the verses. So here we're looking at one of those, the non-conceptual jhana, as a fruition, and that's purity. On the cushion, what we're developing as we work with our mind is purity. Purity means no impurity, so it means the mind is not polluted, spoiled, blocked, limited by incidental defilements, so desire and so on. So desire, and we'll come back to that. Desire, it means desire, the three main mind poisons, desire, hostility, and ignorance. They are respectively like the waters of the lake, or the absence of desire, like the waters of the lake, the absence of hostility, like the moon emerging from the eclipse, and the absence of ignorance, like the sun breaking free from the clouds. And then in the text, I use the example I gave last time, modern day example of a cinema projector. It's on the cushion, when the film's not running, that we discover the white light of the projector and the pure whiteness of the screen. We discover what mind's like beyond conditioning. Verse 178, authentic attainment of the Buddhakayas endowed with the finest of all qualities, is taught as being the fruit of ensuing jhana. So ensuing means following. It means between meditation sessions when we're engaged in life. So when we're engaged in life is where we develop our 6 paramitas. When you're in the stillness of meditation on the cushion, it's not there that you practice generosity. I mean, in one way, it's the most generous thing you can do, but the paramita of generosity is developed off the cushion when we're in contact with life and our own meanness, possessiveness, fear is challenged by life circumstances. Can I give? The fear of giving, what will I lose? How will I manage? Can I give to this person who's a nasty piece of work? Do I like to give to nice people only? All of the things of the paramita of generosity. And the same with right conduct. If you're pickled away on a cushion in a retreat, you don't have lots of challenges to your morality, your right conduct. So it's off the cushion that we develop the 6 paramitas, and it's through the 6 paramitas that we develop contact with other sentient beings, the ones we're generous to, the ones we practice right conduct with, the ones we practice forbearance when they hurt us, when they're hurting the world, when they generate a feeling of hostility within us. We don't like them. We feel like rejecting them and so on. So over our bodhisattva path, we make contact with hundreds, thousands of beings through practicing the 6 paramitas. The 6 paramitas bring us to purity, but that particular purity brings us wisdom about other people, how they work, life, how it works. We must expect, as we practice and develop the 6 paramitas, to make mistakes. Is how we learn. So all of that means that when we become fully enlightened, which is what this section is about, means that our enlightenment will have a spin-off, a fallout of benefit for all those beings we've made contact with. And this is the advert for the bodhisattva path over 3 cosmic eons. You get to meet a lot of people and make lots of contacts. And so then it means when you do become Buddha, after all, however long it takes, then your Buddha activity to help others will be vast. So when it says here, the Buddhakayas, authentic attainment of the Buddhakayas means that you will manifest Sambhogakaya and Nimanakaya to help other beings. What are they? Wait for it, it's coming in section 6, I think, of this particular chapter. And we look at the Kayas in some detail. It's really the key point of this fruition section. So that's taught as the fruit of the ensuing jhana. So then in terms of this attainment of the Buddhakayas, we're really looking at wisdom, the vast aspect of wisdom, where it's not just the wisdom of knowing the essence of your own mind, but knowing everything and everyone. So Milarepa says, it's in the story, you'll find it in translations of the Shepherd's Search for Mind. It's a lovely story. There's a couple of kids, or teenagers, who come to Milarepa because they've heard about it. They're shepherds, so they're up in the hills with their sheep, and they're near Milarepa. And they said, let's go check him out. And they go check him out. He talks with them. One of them's quite interested and quite attracted. The other one, nothing happening. So the other one says, let's split. Nothing going on here. But the first one thinks, I must go back. And he goes back and he gets some shamatha instruction from Milarepa. Has to focus on the tip of his nose. And so he goes off and starts meditating. Milarepa's carrying on doing what he's doing, being Milarepa. And about 2 weeks later, the parents of the boy come and they say, he's not been home for 2 weeks. We heard the last person that he saw was you. Have you got any idea? Milarepa said, well, yeah, he came here a couple of weeks ago. I gave him some meditation instruction. And they find him. And I think Milarepa gives them a clue. And he's sitting there in meditation. And they say, where the hell you been? And he said, I only sat down a few minutes ago to meditate. And he's he's got what they call bhakchak. In past lives, he was a very good meditator. So as soon as Milarepa turned the key and opened the door, he was back there. And they said, you've been away 2 weeks. He said, no way. But then he looked, and being a shepherd who lives outdoors, he saw the sun was earlier in the sky than when he sat down. And after that, he was a useless shepherd. Every time he sat down, he wanted to meditate, and he'd be gone with the fairies. Well, not with the fairies, with the shamatha. So in the end, they gave him to Milarepa as a disciple. He became a very great yogi. Very quickly, he recognized the nature of his mind with Milarepa's help. But then Milarepa said, recognizing the nature of mind is one thing, relatively easy. But the wisdom of a Buddha that embraces everybody, everybody's reality, everything, is a huge task. It would take probably at least 12 years of assiduous meditation on this nature of mind, never leaving it and taking it deeper and deeper, which is exactly what we're talking about in this section. There's a quotation from the previous Dilgo Chensi Rinpoche that I really love and say a couple of times. He says, my guru introduced me to the nature of mind when I was in my late teens. And in that moment, I understood everything. Because you do, in a way. It's enlightenment, in a way. And he said, now I'm an old man. I realized I understood so little. So he'd been going through the stages of the path and going from this recognition of the nature of mind, which is enlightenment, to this much faster understanding everyone and everything. We can really only do that through developing the 6 paramitas, experiencing so many different realities, human realities. They're so vast. Just think of the people you know, how different they are, what's going on in their lives, their karma, how they relate to it. And that's just the ones you know. There are some that are very, very different from those, spread over our planet, and then in this cosmos, and then animals, spirits, and so on. So many different beings. And if we want to help them all, then you can't help somebody till you understand them. Otherwise You're like the Boy Scout helping an old lady across the road when she never wanted to cross it in the first place. You know, you're full of good intentions, but you are not skilled. That skill can only come through lifetimes and lifetimes of experience, which is why our authentic masters are so valuable to us, because they have this. You can't fake it. Tens, hundreds of lifetimes on the Bodhisattva path. So much deep inner experience. So anyway, as a fruition, total enlightenment. So now verses 179, 180, 181. This is like the lake of pure waters and so on, because the silt of desire has been removed. So the pure water, we're talking about our mind now. Desire is like mud. It's like muddy water, stirred up water. We see a lot these days with these extreme weather of these rivers in Tibet, in China, and other countries, or even here in Europe. Rivers that are normally quiet, fairly clear streams, and they're just this rushing, brown, destructive. This is the example here. Water by its nature is clear, but it can't be clear when it's carrying mud. Our mind by its nature is naturally clear, but why we are still the puppets of desire. What is it they say in the scriptures? You live between the jaws of desire. You know, it's like the teeth are there and you're here, and it can get you. Desire gets us again and again. Whatever it is, desire for power, desire for sex, desire for things, desire for whatever. So that's like silt, and our Dharma work on the path and on the Bodhisattva levels is to remove it, and then you have this still, clear mind. It's not all the time taken away and spoiled by desire. And then once it's like that, and you are pure, and you are desireless, then your natural serenity, your peace with yourself and everything. You don't have an agenda. Life is not a negotiation where you want something. You are pure and desireless. Then that means that you are able to sustain other beings, which are like the lotuses. When enlightenment's there, it is the peace, the natural goodness that sustains beings to be trained. When it's free from the next verse, it's like the unblemished full moon. Since freed from hatred's Rahu, it embraces all beings with its light of great compassion and loving kindness. So when the second mind poison has been purified, we're talking about purity here, when there is no longer hostility in any of its forms, it's not just anger and hatred, it's anything or anyone that disturbs you, upsets you. If things upset you, you've got a long way to go. I've got a long way to go. Some things are upsetting. Means my mind is immature. So that's a big topic. We're not going into it today. Parameter of forbearance is all about that. It's a wonderful parameter. There's a lot of information and practice in it. But when one breaks free from being basically hostile to anything or anyone, then it's like the beautiful moon coming out from dark cloud. If there's a dark clouds, they often rain, thunder, damage, they're dark. And even though there's the beautiful moon behind it, it's dark. You're in the dark. Then the moon comes out, starts to come out. And you can see things. And it comes out more and more. And it's so bright and it's so beautiful up there in the sky. And then, these teachings come from India. India, where the sun is not always a blessing, and where it gets very, very hot. You get so often in poetry and in the scriptures, how beautiful a tree is because it gives you shade. And so the light of the moon is considered a healing light. It's light, but it doesn't have the damaging power that the sun can have. So moonlight's very nice in poetry and in scriptures in India. Of course, it doesn't work in the Antarctic, these kind of things, but this is where we're using examples. So then this beautiful, cool light shows you the way to go. And so that's compared to compassion and loving kindness. Instead of the dark cloud of anger inside us, then we have this beautiful, healing moonlight of loving kindness and compassion towards everyone and everything. Third example, Buddhahood is like the immaculate sun because completely free of ignorance's clouds, it dispels being's darkness with the radiance of its primordial wisdom. So we've got the two things here again. Enlightenment as a fruition itself is like the sun free from any obscuring clouds. So there is total clarity. But then because you are clear, or because your mind is clear, because that clear mind is there, then you can be a wise guiding light for other people. And like the sunlight, brilliant sunlight of wisdom. People come with their confusion, their problems, their limitations, and everything's so clear, so obvious. You can help them. You don't have to go, what's your problem? Oh yeah, just a moment. Look it up in the index, 557. Right, this is your problem, this is the answer, this is what the scriptures say. It's not like that. Real master, you go to them, you go into such clarity. So many people, when they go to see a good teacher, just by going into the presence, they've got their list of questions. And they look at their questions, they think, why on earth am I asking all these things? And because they're in a wiser space. And then they realize the real problem's not those list of questions. It's something much deeper. And sometimes you manage to blurt it out and you get the advice you need. So it's wisdom for oneself, and it's wisdom that benefits others. So that's freedom from the three basic mind poisons. That's the purity. That's our liberation. Then we go over to page 197, and then we get this applied to our 9 examples we had in the Buddha Nature chapter. Because it has peerless qualities. So I'm going to jump in this verse, right, from the first line to the third line. Because it has peerless qualities, it's likened unto the Sugata. First example is a real Buddha, not a Buddha image, a real Buddha inside a lotus. Nothing is like the Buddha. So in the example, it's a real Buddha inside the lotus. So because this fruition has qualities found nowhere else, not in arhats, not in the highest of the gods, nowhere else, then it's compared to what's hidden in the first example, the Sugata. Second, because it gives us the taste of authentic Dharma. True Dharma is like the honey. So all the different types of honey, like all the different teachings of Dharma, when you get acacia honey and lavender honey and all sorts of honey, which in themselves taste quite different. You know, some honeys are quite, and others are very mild and so on. But they all taste of honey. They're definitely honey. So authentic Dharma has its own feel. It's what's going to take you to liberation. Sometimes on my level, it has an uncomfortable feel. You know, when you have to drop desire, blast. But you know it's doing you good. You know, when you need to drop it. And yeah. So Dharma has its own feel, taste. But then there are so many dharmas, so many teachings, so many practices, but they should all have this same feel. Now what that feeling is, we're not studying here, but if you ever get the chance to check it out, it's called the 4 seals of Dharma. So it's like 4 stamped seals of authenticity. If number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, if it checks all those boxes, that's Buddha Dharma. So if these days you want to check out teachers, you know, Dharma teachers, there are lots of them. They're not all good. If you want to check them out, listen to their teachings, see what they get up to, see, does it check with the first seal, second seal, third seal, fourth seal? Then it's, if it does, then it's authentic Dharma. And if it doesn't, then it's not. Simple as that. So the taste of honey. And then because it's free from the shell of ignorance, it's like the kernels of, you know, the rice inside the husk and all the other grains. It's what's really nourishing. It's not the outer shell covering it, ignorance. So they were our first 3 of the 9 examples. Because it's naturally pure, we jump to line 4. It's likened unto gold. Gold is relatively pure in itself, and it doesn't rust, it's not corrupted by most things. So, because it's naturally pure, this fruition, when one becomes totally born, all of these 9 examples, now we're looking at total fruition. It's like the gold, because it dispels being's poverty by its own wealth of qualities. It's likened to the treasure hidden under the ground of the poor person. And because it gives the fruit of total liberation, it's like the great tree. You know, the tree, when we looked at mango fruit and other fruit, where they give him rise to a shoot that will become a tree. This is the great tree, the final fruition. The last 3 examples, verse 184, because it is the embodiment of dual qualities, jewel. Here this word means like most precious qualities. It's likened to a jewel object. That's a jeweled statue. Because it is the supreme Lord of bipeds. Now, I love this bit because, sometimes Dharma can get so technical. And then, sometimes Lamas with quite a bland face, they'll say bipeds. And then they go into the numbers. There are two sorts of bipeds, two main sorts, humans and birds, right? With the two-legged beings. I suppose there are devas who've got two legs as well. So often in the scriptures, the Buddha is referred to as the supreme Lord of bipeds. It just means the finest human being, really. But those texts were written in poetry, and in poetry, you're not in that poetry, the Sanskrit poetry and Tibetan poetry, in French poetry as well, you're not supposed to repeat the same word in the same verse or the same idea. So you need to find, an epithet. It's like on the news in France. If they say Marseille, then in the same sentence, they can't say Marseille again. They have to say the Phocéan city, la cité phocéenne. And then if they had to say it a third time, they'd have to find another name for Marseille. It's part of the rules of good speech. So there are many, many epithets for the Buddha. And so one of them is the Supreme Lord of bipeds. Now this example, remember, it was the destitute pregnant woman who's carrying a future king of the world inside her. So although she's in poverty and she's suffering a lot, what she carries will look after her beautifully in the future, will be a very powerful, rich king. So this is what's inside. What it means is what's inside me and what's inside you. Even though we're in this particular state of samsara at the moment, it's going to be wonderful. It's going to be beautiful. Take care of everything. And then because it is an image precious in its composition. So if we talk about the fruition as an image, we're talking about Buddhahood as it appears to others. Sambhogakaya, Nimanakaya, how it appears to bodhisattvas, how it appears to beings in samsara. So because it appears in a very noble and precious way, it's compared to the golden statue. So with that, we've gone through the third point about enlightenment, where we look at it as a fruition, or we look at it as a process coming to fruition through the 10 bodhisattva levels. And the next point, fourth point, is about enlightenment as a function. Remember, in previous chapters, we've seen like Buddha nature, what's his function? What does it do? Always makes me think of our late Queen of England and her garden parties and all these hundreds of guests. What she would always ask each person, "Hello, how are you? What do you do?" And so, what does it do? What's the function of enlightenment? What's its impact? What's its effect? And so here we're looking at what is called the twofold fulfillment. we need to go back to our initial bodhisattva promise, where we want to attain enlightenment to benefit all beings. We want to attain enlightenment, which is the best thing for ourselves, so we can help all beings. Now, in theoretical thinking, those two might not be the same. Just in concepts. Maybe what's best for you isn't what's best for everybody. Maybe what's best for everybody wouldn't be the best thing for you. And that's possible in abstract thought. So as Buddhists, what we believe is that this enlightenment, this total fruition of all of our work, is both the very, very best thing that could happen for us and the very best way that we can serve everybody else. Those two things go together. And that's what we're looking at in this chapter. It's the twofold fulfillment. And this word, it bears some reflection. If you've got the time, reflect. Think about fulfillment and what that means. And do you feel fulfilled? And if not, what would you think of as fulfilled? It's an amazing word. Fulfilled. Filled up to the full. Couldn't get any better. Not just full, not just filled, but fulfilled. Wow. And so, think about that. And how what wrecks so many people's life is a lack of a sense of fulfillment. You feel you've missed it. You've not got it. It's why we're jealous of others, because they have what we don't have. It's why we resent what's got in our way, what we feel has stopped us. It's why we still have desire. There's something missing. There's something longing. And so that's there. And the more we meditate, the more we realize all sorts of subtle variations of that lack of fulfillment. So here we're looking at enlightenment as the twofold fulfillment. First, in brief, enlightenment, untainted, all-pervading, is of an indestructible nature because it is everlasting, at peace, permanent and undying. It's the ground for benefiting beings. The Tathagata are like space, the basis for the objects of the six sense faculties to be experienced by those who are excellent. This is not an easy section. This and the next section, you kind of get the feeling these probably mean a lot to a third level bodhisattva. But to us, they're okay. But I think their full meaning has impact. That's what we're looking at here, the function. When you have a lot of meditation experience under your belt. So enlightenment, we've seen it's pure, it's untainted, and it pervades everything and everyone, and it knows everything and everyone. Now, this is the point, is of an indestructible nature, because it's everlasting, at peace, permanent, and undying. Those words we'll see are the opposite of subject to birth, aging, sickness, and death. Everything in samsara, even the very, very subtle and most wonderful state of an arhat, is subject to birth, aging, sickness, and death. What does that mean? Comes into being, exists, and disappears. Comes into being through causes and conditions, lasts as long as those causes and conditions make it last. When the causes and conditions run out, finished. It's like me. I know I'm how can you say, miserable, morbid person, but I'm also an old person who's got several, serious illnesses. So I'm close to exit for this life. I'm very aware of it. And, if you don't believe in reincarnation, then none of this makes sense. But if you believe in reincarnation, then even the most simple logic, look at dying people, like me, old people. I can organize things. I understand things. I can organize a talk. I can go blah, blah, blah for an hour and a half, and it's all compartmentalized, clear, and that. When I die, so look at old people, then look at babies that are born, newborn babies. They can't organize a thing. They've got to learn all over again. You need plastic toys with squares and circles and crosses, and this one doesn't fit in this hole, and this one does fit in that hole. And you have to learn language again, and then become a little parrot of your parents for a couple of years and sound like them until you get influenced by your school friends who are influenced by their parents, and then, all of that all over again due to karma, causes and conditions, and then that will end. And even if you're born for 10,000 years in the Deva realm and it's pretty sweet up there, that will come to an end too, and then whatever your karma is. So that never stops until we put an end to it. And this is why enlightenment as a fruition is a fulfillment of your wish to free yourself. This is freedom. No more forced rebirth through the power of your past karma. So once you achieve that, then because you've achieved it, you've broken free from all those fetters. Then that's the ground for benefiting beings. You are like space, the basis for the objects of the 6 sense faculties to be experienced by those who are excellent. So you are like space. But because you've reached full enlightenment, and you are totally transparent, lucid wisdom, through the power of your past karma contact with other beings who are now in the 10 bodhisattva levels, they experience you as this Buddha, that Buddha, medicine Buddha, wrathful Buddha, peaceful Buddha. They experience you teaching them in terms of what they need to receive. But you are like space. You are none of those things. But they experience you as all of those things. So a mirror is a marvelous example for this. A mirror reflects each person who comes in front. None of those images are in the mirror itself. That will be a very busy place, a mirror, if it had to hold all of those images. Does that make sense? If the mirror itself held your reflection and the reflection of the people behind you, and whatever this person's seeing from that side, that person's seeing from that side, if they're moving people, they're seeing different images. If there are 20 people in front of the mirror moving in different directions, and what they're seeing, if all of those things were in the mirror, but they're not. Mirror's pretty cool. It's just mirror. And people see what they see. So I hope that makes sense. It's about as close we can get in our world to an example of, well, the Buddha's mind that we're looking at here. But even in our living reality, the very authentic lamas we go to see, what we see of them, what we get from them, is what we need, what we can take, what our own mind both projects and what its limitations enable it to perceive or not to perceive. So that's what's marvelous when it's an authentic Lama. First we see them as a human being, later on we see them as Buddha. So that's what's being talked about here. For the objects of the six sense faculties, so those bodhisattvas see Buddhas, hear Buddha's teaching. They smell, their sense of smell in the 10 bodhisattva levels, there's a very special smell of purity, the fragrance of purity, and so on. They're very, very fine, noble six senses experience Buddhas. So in the commentary, on page 199, it says it reveals the state, so its function is to reveal the state tainted by neither action, karma, or the defilements, klesha, nor any psychological conditioning, what they call vasana in Sanskrit. That's the liberation aspect. Secondly, it reveals what is all-embracing. That's the wisdom aspect. Third, it brings indestructibility, liberated from aging, sickness, birth, and death. So that's why it's called eternal or peace, permanent and immortal. And then what it reveals, its function is to reveal the basis of everything and everyone. Everything manifests from that pure ground of mind. So then, in more detail, we're not there yet. We're still in brief. In the condition, it's verse 186. It's the condition for form beyond the four elements to be seen, for the good and pure sound to be heard, for the pure fragrance of the Sugata's perfect conduct to be smelled, for the taste of the Dharma, of the great and of the deeply realized to be savored. So when you reach the bodhisattva levels, then your mind experiences Buddhas. So in a sense, you see them. But what is seen with the mind. It's not seen with these eyes. What these eyes see is material based on the four elements. It's optical. It's optical. So when we look at that in Buddhist terms or Tibetan medical terms, it's part of the action of the four elements. So, in other places we look at what are called 5 types of eye. This is called a water bubble eye, human eye, and it sees material stuff made of the four elements. And then we get a Dharma eye, a Prajna eye, a Jhana eye, divine eye, where there is a seeing with the mind. Can't explain it, better to experience it. But that's what those bodhisattvas, that's when they experience Buddhas, they see Buddhas. And then the pure and good sound is the sound of Dharma. They hear Dharma teaching. Their sense of smell becomes transformed, and you say, your range of smells goes from what we've got to purity. We've got a kind of purity dial. So when they experience the Buddha, there is this very special fragrance that's experienced. The taste is the taste of Dharma, the Dharma of what they call the great and deeply realized of the Buddha. In verse 187, for the fifth sense, what for us is feeling hot, cold, hungry, thirsty, nervous system messages, that becomes transformed and one feels the bliss of samadhi. And then the sixth consciousness, mind consciousness, is constantly in the true nature of mind. So therefore it says, when considered in a very fine way, the Buddha, Tathagata, who give birth to true bliss, are like space, devoid of reasons, means devoid of causality. They are not created by causes and conditions. Yep, when considered in a very fine way. So that might take some time. So now we turn over the page and we're in page 200 and we're looking in greater detail. Verse 188, the function of the two jhanas, in session and between session jhanas, put concisely, is to be known as the perfect fulfillment of the Vimuktikaya and the accomplishment of Dharmakaya. So here we've got these two terms, and a lot of this section about Buddhahood, fourth chapter, fourth main chapter, is about kayas. And we get this word kaya, which literally means body. And that's really misleading in a way, because when we read translations, well, you read words and words mean to us what they normally mean to us. So when it talks about the different bodies of the Buddha, it really gives a resonance of material. They've got this body and that body, and people wonder how they all fit together. And it means manifestation. How Buddhas are embodied in themselves and how other beings experience them, which is not the same. So that's what we're looking at in this chapter. And in this section, we're looking at two main areas of the function of enlightenment. One is, in the terms of the twofold fulfillment, one is its freedom for ourselves. We are liberated. We are free of birth, aging, sickness, and death forever. The word for freedom is mukti in Sanskrit. The word for perfect freedom is vimukti. So this embodies, kaya, embodies perfect freedom. So vimukti kaya embodies, it's the embodiment of perfect freedom. That's the total fulfillment for ourselves. Vimukti kaya. And then in terms of benefiting others, because of the clarity of mind and the presence of all the Dharma there, and there is the teaching of Dharma, Dharma techniques, Dharma ideas, and so on. All the different levels of Dharma, some of them so profound. I suddenly just had a memory of the early days of Samiling. And in those days, Akon Rinpoche's office was a tiny little room at the foot of the stairs. Somehow we managed. But I was his secretary at the time. And I remember bursting in through the door, and he was sitting in there with another Rinpoche. And gosh, the atmosphere, which quickly kind of shrunk because I'd come in through the door, but going into however they were being with each other was just amazing. Amazing. So Dharma, the giving of Dharma from an enlightened mind to beings on the way, on the path, and especially to the bodhisattvas in the 10 levels. That's the fulfillment for others. You become the embodiment of Dharma because of what we just saw. They experience Buddhas giving them teachings, giving them methods and so on, but you are like space. That is the fulfillment for others. So it's for the bliss of samadhi, bliss felt in samadhi to experience. Yeah? So, yeah, they're like space. In greater detail, I've gone over the page. The function of the two jhanas, put concisely, is to be known as Vimukti Kaya and Dhammakaya. So we just did that first. Since they are untainted, all-embracing, and the uncreated ground, the Vimukti Kaya and the Dharmakaya that we just discovered should be known as having two attributes and one attribute. So Vimuktikaya is untainted, it's freedom, it's purity. Dharmakaya is all pervasive, it teaches Dharma to everyone, it knows the Dharmas, all the different Dharmas. That's the two attributes, one each, and then one common attribute, which is both of them are beyond birth, aging, sickness, and death. Okay, that's a good place to stop for today, I think. We have more to do in this function section. So anything that was good and useful today, let's dedicate it, share it with everyone. May whatever virtue was created by this session contribute to the state of omniscience being attained. By the main enemy, our mind's defilements, being completely defeated. Through that, may each and every sentient being become freed from the ocean of existence, troubled by the waves of rebirth, aging, sickness, and death. May this precious bodhicitta arise in those in whom it's not arisen, in those in whom it has arisen. May its development know no setbacks. May it increase ever more and more. Through this virtue, may we quickly achieve Mahamudra and establish every single sentient being in that same accomplishment. Well, thank you very much, and over to you for your comments and questions. Contributions.
I was wondering about a small topic, big topic that you have said was too much to talk about. And those were the 4 seals. If you could just say the names of them, then that would be very nice. I think one is impermanence. Yeah, is it the impermanence and suffering and selfless and
voidness.
Voidness and shunyata.
Yeah, shunyata. Yeah. There's Tai Sutupa gave a very nice teaching on this in Samiling. It's in the book called Way to Go, but that's not very widely distributed. But he taught that the four seals of Dharma as being the one way of conceiving relative bodhicitta.
Oh yeah, because that's the nature of mind, the nature of reality, as it is.
So it's all conditioned phenomena, impermanent. All being is without self. All conditioned phenomena attract suffering, and then there is shunyata, voidness. I forget the actual words. A bit tired. It's gone.
Oh, it's always there, but it's hiding.
And a clarification, please. You mentioned that, so we started off looking at the different mind poisons and how they link to this particular chapter. And then we looked, and then you went on to talk about in 183, I think it was, 182, you said that the poisons here are linked to the 9 different examples. Was that, I just clarifying, was that what you said? Have I misunderstood something?
Yeah, verses 182, 183, and 184 are a direct reference to the 9 examples.
So and did you say that they're linked to the point? So are those 3 verses, do they, like, does 182 link to ignorance, 183 to desire, or?
No.
Okay.
They link to the 9 examples, those ones.
Okay.
The verses before are about the 3 mind poisons.
Yeah.
Right? 179, 180, 181. And then it goes in general to refer back to those 9 examples with 1 point each.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ken, there was something you said which I found quite helpful, but I just wanted to check my understanding. It was when you talked about manifesting as a mirror or something, it was words to that effect. I know in the past you've talked about mirror-like wisdom, which I've always found a bit baffling as a metaphor, but this time it seemed to make more sense, in the sense of kind of reflecting to people. My interpretation of what you said was that it's kind of reflecting to people, not so much themselves, but what they need to see, what's useful, in the sense of a mirror being useful to see what you need to see, in order to help yourself in some way. And that kind of manifestation is really, for whoever passes in front of that mirror, they look in it and they see what's useful to them, what's going to benefit them. But you, in the sense that there is a you at all, but you are not involved, or the English word doesn't quite, I think it actually means folded in, but I think the Dutch word ingewikkeld is better, but you're not tied into them or those phenomena. So it's kind of, you can reflect that to someone and help them in that way, but you're not tied in. I suppose in the way that in chemistry, like a catalyst can get things to happen, but it doesn't take part in the reaction itself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Right?
And there's quite a good term that's very, it's a buzzword these days. It's non-transactional.
Ah, okay.
You know, in that, from our point of view. But, you know, a mirror is an example. No example works all the way. So when it's an example, the main thing we're considering, but not say looking at, because looking at the mirrors, then it gets confusing. The main thing we're considering is what it's an example of, is that nobody has seen a mirror. Who's seen a mirror? Nobody. What you see in a mirror is your reflection. You never see the mirror. Of course, you can see the back of it, but that's not a mirror. You know, a mirror, by definition, is what reflects. You know how it works. That's not a mirror. As soon as there's a mirror that's reflecting, then you are not seeing what's doing it. You're only seeing the reflection. Nobody has ever seen a mirror. So, but of course, when we look at the mirror, we see something. We see something. That image, what it means is when you see your face isn't actually sort of in the mirror, like a painting, or you know, if it was a painting or something like that. It's not there. Nobody's ever seen a mirror. So what you can't quite compare is the fact that when our mind is in contact with the Buddha mind, it says we see Buddhas, we hear Dharma teachings, we receive special feeling. You know, it's uplifting in many ways. We went through the 6 consciousnesses, how it affects us. And although that's what we experience, it's not what's there. What's there doing that is so much faster. And it's like space. So an ordinary mirror doesn't reflect to you necessarily what's good and beneficial. It just reflects. So we have to stop the example there. For instance, you can look in a mirror and see your reflection and think, I hate you. And so, you know, that's not Dharma. When our mind is in contact with Buddha mind, shunyata, then it only brings benefit. And which is a very, very important point, is that the basic nature of mind is not just neutral, it is good. You know? And so wonderful, like in the Nimapa tradition, their primordial Buddha is called the all-good Samantabhadra. Nothing but goodness, everything good.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Hello, Ken.
Hello, Mika.
It's,
You feeling any better?
I'm also recovering.
Yeah.
Recovering in the forest in the Sami Indigenous state, in the lap of the forest. It's so healing here, and it's amazing experience to look your lecture and teaching here. It's like some fairy world.
Yes, I'm a fairy.
You have many faces. Yeah. Maybe you come someday here and you meet some fairies and talk with them. But I have a question. I really enjoyed this. There was something what came very important from me when you stayed in the early stage of this lecture. On Kashan, doing shamatha, we create purity. And my main practice is to do shamatha and like almost every day. And I also do it as like dedication to other living beings. So it's also my like bodhisattva practice also like a double. So there is some questions about how I could and others also could do better shamatha and create more this purity. So is it I have been doing this your samatha first, what is only short and very deep meditations. And I've been learning to do better longer meditation with that, but that your teaching is very, very helpful for me. So is it the best way to create purity when doing the short, sharp meditation, or is it better to have like maybe longer and trying to be like pure like a lake, like no thoughts and just be like in this like a deep calmness, or is it just like my tea master teaches that he's a Zen priest and he teaches that it doesn't matter, it just if you do regular meditation morning and evening, it doesn't matter if there is all the mess and everything comes, but if you just sit, it's already good and you do it regularly and that's already benefiting. So how you teach in this karma kakwelin, and how you would teach others who want to become better in shamatha and create more purity, how to do it with the shamatha that it's the best way to create purity?
Yeah. I can only give you the Kamakaju answer because different lineages have different ways, different teachers have different ways. But if you want to go, what's the word, efficiently, quickly, you want to use this life to the full, then the instruction is many short sessions, for sure. For sure. You do a short session until that session is perfect, then you make it longer. If you can't make a short session perfect, then there's no point increasing the time. The way to make it perfect is discipline. And the discipline says, in the text, it says, imagine, from point of view of mindfulness, you are walking with a razor-sharp sword to your jugular, with the threat that you do one thing wrong, finished, or that you are balancing a bowl of boiling hot oil on the top of your head, and just like the slightest movement, you can't. Well, these are examples. So you're not. Although one person, he wasn't a very good meditator, came to Akon Rinpoche once and said, "That's him." He said, "Rinpoche," in Spanish. He said, "Rinpoche, this is impossible. You cannot do this." And so Akon Rinpoche got him to meditate with a bowl of cold water, not boiling hot oil, balanced on his head. And in the end, he could do it for an hour session, without moving. And he got an awful lot of benefit. But anyway, the point is, you just cannot afford to burn yourself with hot oil. So your mindfulness, or you cannot afford to be killed. Or if somebody, one of these terrible modern, I don't know, could be in a film, somebody had kidnapped your child, your dearest friend, and they were going to kill them unless. So then it's with that kind of discipline, or we can make it attractive. You get $100 million if you can do 3 minutes just as instructed. How hard would you try? I mean, really, if you have to work, or if you know all the benefits you could bring with $100 million, and all you have to do is follow the instructions for 3 minutes. So you meditate like that. If you could do it to get $100 million, if you could do it to save somebody's life, if you could do it so you wouldn't be scalded with hot oil, then you can do it. So if it says you concentrate on your breath in whatever way the instruction is, then you just do that. And as soon as there's anything else, you cut it off. You don't even go there. As soon as any distraction from that, nothing but the breath. And you learn to be with that as though your life was in danger, as though you could save somebody's life, as though you could gain the greatest reward. If you apply that discipline, and so many people have done this, and they say, this is amazing. Why did I never learn this in the first place? If you can do 2 minutes like that, 3 minutes, what you find is, through trying to do that, that actually in just 3 minutes, you get to quite some peaceful state. And people say, but sometimes I'd do an hour before, and I'd only reach such peacefulness, once or twice in an hour's session, and then lose it. And even then, I'd say it was a good session. What you find if you apply that much discipline, you just won't tolerate even a second of distraction. Nothing but the breath. However you're following it, or whatever you're doing with it, or whatever the meditation instruction is, nothing but that. Nothing at all. That is what makes the difference. It makes the 3 minutes become something totally transformed. So when you can do the 2 minutes or the 3 minutes, and each time you've done it, nothing but the breath, then you can make it 4 minutes and 5 minutes. And I remember it's something, if I can go back to my own experience, in 1970, I was in Dharamsala and my best friend had gone across to Sonada to see Kalu Rinpoche. And he said, I went in to see him and we were talking about meditation. And he said, look, until you can practice like this, and he said, Kalu Rinpoche just sat, and all of a sudden he was in total samadhi. And because he's a great master, you could feel it. Peacefulness, endless, perfect, clarity, stillness, silence. He said, until you can just do this immediately. And it's terrible. People go to Dharma centers and they're taught to meditate for half an hour or an hour. And that's heresy. In our Karma Kagyu lineage, it says beginners must absolutely start with short sessions. So anyway, that's my advice, is discipline. But I think we can be surprised how disciplined we can be. And certainly in meditation, you just learn. I can't describe it, but those examples are very helpful. I think for me, especially the fact that if you could save somebody's life, if you could do it, how you'd really, really try. I hope that helps, Mika.
Yeah, if it's dedicating, like doing this like as a bodhisattva practice and dedicate samatha practice this to all living beings, so is it better to do like half an hour, like very pure meditation, or is it like better to do like no, like half an hour? If you try your best, you put 100% and you try your best, and they see that you do your best, but it's not still perfect. It's still a little sometimes going dots. And or is it doing this like a shamatha burst, like you do 3 minutes or 5 minutes, and you do totally pure and 100%? So what is the better to dedicate to the all the living beings is doing this like as like a bodhisattva practice for the all. So is it this longer when you do your best and you just sit and you almost drop and you try to be, or is it like 5 minutes and being like so perfect what you can? What is the better for dedication to others? Not self, but others.
I can only tell you what our meditation teachers say, and that it is better to do like 3 minutes, minute and a half break, 3 minutes, minute and a half break. There's more benefit for you and more benefit for others than if you did half an hour non-stop applying the technique. Because if you look at the quality, the whole point of meditation is to improve, to purify our mind. So if the Buddha could see your meditation and say, in your session, how much did your mind improve in terms of what's going on in your whole life? How much did it purify? That there will be much more benefit in doing these 3 very disciplined minutes and a break. And I think it's very easy, because if you do that, you'll experience the benefit yourself. It's just so much better. And you'll realize how, when we do a half an hour non-stop, how the mind wanders. So we do the bodhicitta at the beginning of the session, dedication at the end. Actually, if you're practicing shamatha, you haven't got other sentient beings in your mind. That's a distraction, and it becomes bodhicitta. Because if you're concentrating on the breath, you're concentrating on the breath. You're not thinking about suffering or sentient beings or anything. So we make it bodhicitta. And really it's what this section of the book is about, How do we fulfill our wish for ourselves and other beings? And it's through cultivating this clarity of mind. So what you see when you do 3 minutes is even 2 minutes or 3 minutes. It's, in terms of attention span on that level, it's as much as we can manage. It's why when you do half an hour, the mind wanders all over the place. And it's very therapeutic. I remember Taisittupa, he said, doing a long session, half an hour or an hour, it's very therapeutic, feels nice. It enables lots of, release, and for people who come in from a busy day's work, very healing. And he said, to my mind, there's what I call aspirin meditation and Buddhist meditation. He said, aspirin meditation, like you have a headache, you take an aspirin, for 5-6 hours you get relief, and then you get another headache, you take another aspirin. And so this kind of nice therapeutic feeling of release after stress and busyness is not bad, it's good, but it's not dharma, because dharma is what takes us from good to better and makes our life a journey. So if we want shamatha to be not just temporarily healing, but something that's opening up these 2 aspects of wisdom, that's the very best thing for ourselves and for others, then we need that mastery of stillness. Like Kalu Rinpoche said to my friend, where you can actually sit down and in 3 minutes you achieve stillness. This changes everything for people. People have, they say, I had to work a bit late. I don't have my hour for meditation this evening. But if you can meditate in 3 minutes, even while you're at work, you can take your cup of coffee over to the window and you can do 3 minutes and you're back in the stillness. You can find 3 minutes here, 3 minutes there, 3 minutes in so many places. Finding an hour, and then you've got the kids screaming in the next room or whatever, it's still not the same. Finding that hour, those 3 minutes is a possibility.
Yeah, it's. I noticed when I did some years meditation, and I just try to do it for myself, like always trying to empty the cup that I can learn more, that not too much. This like emptying and creating purity. But some years when I meditate quite a lot, because my other teacher is a Chotosen priest, so it's like just meditation. Like he says, one practice you have only, it's meditation, 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 and it was much for me. But then everything changed. I try to do this your samatha burst and I get it's more sharp. And after some months, I got the feeling that it's not anymore meditation to myself. I get the feeling that now I need to start to meditate to others. And then I meditate like sometimes I meditate that I meditate myself because I know that my mind is not enough clear. But when I get very good meditation, then I feel that now it's so good that I can very gladly dedicate to others, and sometimes I shame because I dedicate maybe not so good meditation to others. So always when I do very good meditation, I feel good to dedicate to the others, and then I feel that I do bodhicitta. I'm not only doing this aspirin healing for myself, I'm doing it also for others and this planet. So then I noticed that the change from ordinary meditator become like a practice of bodhicitta for others and more is like a bodhisattva way and not just having these aspirants that I can handle my daily life. So that was the point where this all meditation practice changed for me to come practice for others and trying to do it for better, that I can dedicate the better for others. So
Yeah,
I just
it's easy. It's easy, Mika. It's very, very easy. It's like we just did when we dedicated the session. Whatever was good and beneficial in this session, that's what we're dedicating. We don't dedicate the whole session and all the rubbish bits. We dedicate whatever was useful, whatever was good, whatever was helping me to find liberation. That's complicated. We need to make mistakes. We need to be distracted to learn what concentration is. We need to make mistakes to learn what all of that. But whatever was good and useful, I dedicate, not the rest. Then there's no problem at all. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. That was the main thing what I was looking for. Not dedicate the shit, but good things. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Ken, a quick question. You used the word cutting, and a lot of people talk about cutting thoughts, which is seems to me to be very aggressive in a way. And Mahamudra is all about relaxation. The more you can relax, the better meditation.
Yeah, Mahamudra's a path. So
instead of
it's
cutting,
a path where relaxation, which actually is not about relaxation, this is translators stuff. It means remaining, right? When it talks about remaining, it means remaining in the nature of mind once you've found it. But in order to find it, then we need shamatha and we need vipassana. And for the shamatha, then discipline is very important. So there it gets, how can you say, I can't answer that in a few words, but in like ocean, Mahamudra, ocean of certainty, when at the beginning of the shamatha training, it throws you right in at the deep end. It tells you the 6 points that Tilopa taught Naropa, so you know where the whole thing's going. So you know about the basic nature of mind, and so on and so on, and meditation that's not the past, present, future, and all that kind of thing. You get that instruction as a general background, but then when you get into the, okay, first following the breath or whatever the next instructions are, then you need discipline. And usually these days we start with 2 minutes, 3 minutes. And the cutting, one can use that word, it's cutting off, but it means you just don't let it in. You don't even go there. Whatever wants to come into your mind through habit, your willpower that's keeping you with your breath, or whatever it is stronger. That's why they give the examples. If you're sitting with a bowl of something on your head, you want to move. I had what they call it, MRI scan the other day. You're in the scanner, you're not allowed to move. I had an itch. You want to scratch, and you're going to go. They say, the next session is 16 minutes, right? You've got an itch, and you can't move. So even though you want to move, and normally everything in you might try and find some way to itch without scratching with your hand, but you can't. You can't. Your willpower has to be stronger than the habit. And in shamatha, that's what makes all the difference. So, and then what I said about 2 or 3 minutes is normally how people train these days. When you go back to the time of the Mahasiddhas, they say, how long is the ideal session? Is it 2 minutes, 3 minutes? And they say, actually, the ideal session is the length of 1 breath. First, you get 1 breath perfect. When you can do that every time, 1 breath and then take a rest where you are perfectly. That's what they say. But then they were siddhas living with siddhas, and the whole situation was very different from ours. But in the shamatha, then when it says relax, look, there's so many words. Mahamudra's got a richness of vocabulary. There are about 5, 6, 7 terms that are translated as relax. But they all mean remain. And they do mean remain relaxedly, but it assumes that you've already got access to the nature of mind. So then rather than being pulled into distraction and losing that, then you remain. First it's remain in the nature of mind. That involves lots of cutting off, not allowing anything that will pull you away. And then with time, once it's your new habit, then it's remain relaxedly. And then with more time, it's remain relaxedly and brightly and lucidly, with brilliance and then bliss. But it is a journey. It is a path. That's why we get, the 12 stages of Mahamudra and so on. Okay, so next week we don't have this text teaching. Next week is our monthly Tonglen. So hope to see you all again in 2 weeks. Take good care. Be well. And thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.